Good evening, cat lovers. This is Saqib Pathan, President Feline Club of India. I would like all of you to welcome on behalf of Feline Club of India as well as DogSpot. Today, we are jointly hosting this seminar with DogSpot so that even the viewers from DogSpot can enjoy and learn about this wonderful webinar. What we are going to discuss today is regarding wet food and its importance in cats diet, and how you can balance between your dry food as well as your cat food. It is always being suggested that you should use the cat food. You should not only feed your cats with dry food, but you should also feed your cats with wet food. But what are the technicalities? What are the causes for this statement? Whether it is actually necessary that you should go for wet food, or only dry food can suffice your purpose. Having said that, I would like to introduce Mark. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening and welcome to everyone.
And hello and welcome from India. So ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about Mark. So Mark has been in pet food industry for more than 10 years now. He has worked in pet food production throughout in Europe, USA, South America, Thailand, Australia, and New Zealand. He has been technical director for MPM for last 10 years, and also the technical director of Applaws all natural range of product. And having said that, he also happens to be a Main Coon breeder. So I think we can connect really well, Mark.
Good. Well, welcome everyone. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about pet food. I've actually been involved in pet food manufacturing for well over 30 years, and I've worked with some of the biggest brands globally that you'll see on the supermarket shelf, producing pet food for both cats and for dogs. And with that, I'm going to go straight into my presentation, if that's okay.
Yes. So, Mark, I think can we go to your presentation? So, ladies and gentlemen, what we are going to do is we'll go ahead with the presentation. After the presentation is over, I would also steal few minutes from Mark and explain a bit of the key points in Hindi. तो हमारे हिंदी व्यूअर्स के लिए जिन्हें थोड़ा लैंग्वेज का इशू या एक्सेंट की वजह से प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है, तो मैं थोड़ा जो भी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स या इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हैं वो आपके लिए ट्रांसलेट करूंगा. So, Mark, I just told our viewers back home that I would like to translate the keywords and key points that from your presentation in our national language. So,
excellent.
Over to you, Mark.
Good. Okay. Well, first thing to probably point out is that dogs are quite different to cats. Cats are not small dogs. Their metabolism is quite different. They differ in a number of key areas. Perhaps one of the most interesting is if you look at their number of taste buds that they have. Dogs have about 1,700, humans have about 9,000, but cats only have 500, which is a massive difference. And yet, many people say that their cat is very fussy, and those 500 taste buds they do have are very focused on those important nutrients which they need from their food. So cats can automatically detect nutrients in food that you and I can't. Perhaps one of the most important nutrients is taurine. Taurine humans need, but we're clever. We can create taurine in our own bodies. Cats can't. They have to have it every day from the food that they get. So I'll come back onto taurine later. Cats are also different as far as they have powerful jaws, and these jaws are designed for ripping and tearing. A key area that they differ from dogs and from humans is they do not have any digestive enzymes in their saliva to help digest carbohydrates. We, as humans, we have an enzyme called amylase, and that exists in our saliva. And when we start to eat carbohydrates, that's grain, wheat, maize, immediately the amylase starts to break down the carbohydrates in a form that the body can use. Cats do not have this. They are what we call a true carnivore. They have to have a high meat diet. A lot of dry foods on the market tend to be based mainly on grains and cereals and not meat. So when looking for a good dry diet, try and choose one which has got a high meat content. Another important difference with a cat is their stomach as a ratio is much smaller than a stomach of a dog. A dog in the wild is a scavenger or hunter, and they can survive on 1 or 2 meals a day. But a cat likes many micro meals. They can, in the wild, have as many as 20 small meals during the day. And dry is ideal for this because you can leave the dry food out during the day and in the evening, and your cat can come along and have a few kibbles when they're hungry. If you look at a cat's profile of the food that they eat in the wild, I've been very fortunate that I've been able to study in North Africa the origins of all cats. And all cats, their origins go back to North Africa, to the North African desert cat. These cats survive on a wide variety of wild prey, everything from mice to insects to even lizards. And in the wild, they get most of their moisture. In fact, cats can get all the moisture they need through their the prey that they feast on. And that's because most prey is around about 80% moisture. And if you look on the column on the left, the one which says wild prey, you'll see the majority of the diet is made up of meat and also water. If you look on the right, the typical type of dry foods that you will get, if you add up all the grains and cereals that exist in most dry foods, and that's adding up the wheat, the maize, the other types of grains that there can be, on average, 70% of most dry food is actually based on cereals. Now, for cats have a tolerance when it comes to cereals. So to try and feed a diet which is more natural when looking for a dry food diet, try to choose one with the highest meat content that you can find. And also feeding wet food alongside it helps give your cat the added moisture that they need to keep them fit and healthy. If you look at a cat and we focus on the cat's skull, you'll see that the domestic cat, that their skull is very, very similar to larger cats such as cheetahs or lions. In fact, they look almost identical. If you look at their front jaws, these jaws are not designed for chewing. These jaws are designed for ripping meat, ripping flesh, and swallowing it. Cats are, as I mentioned before, a true carnivore. They need a high meat diet to keep them fit and healthy. Taurine. Taurine is an essential amino acid as far as cats is concerned. They need this on a daily basis. Taurine exists naturally in real meaty ingredients. Many dry foods are actually quite low, or sorry, many pet foods are actually quite low in taurine, so they have added synthetic taurine added. We believe that taurine is best used by the cat in its natural form. And the natural form, you will get it in high meat products. Taurine is particularly important for kittens, and if kittens don't receive high levels of taurine, they won't survive. So they do need this on a daily basis. It is the key to keeping your cat healthy. They need it for also, if you don't have taurine, it can cause a whole host of other conditions. On one, which is unfortunately getting a lot of focus at the moment, is dilated cardiomyopathy, which can cause a problem with cats. So, when feeding your cat, hydration is key. And particularly if you're feeding dry food, quite often your cat will not receive the right levels of moisture to keep them healthy. And getting your cat to drink can at times be a real problem. Some cats simply don't like drinking water, and they don't like tap water. Tap water, particularly if it's high in chlorine, cats don't like that. They're very sensitive to the chlorine. One way to help get rid of the chlorine is to use a particular type of cat fountain, and this will actually help remove the taurine from your tap water to encourage your cat to hydrate more, to drink more. Another very easy way of getting your cat to hydrate and to drink more is by giving your cat a tasty, natural can of wet pet food. Meat is 80% moisture, and cats find it very, very tasty. Cats are naturally drawn to ingredients which are high in taurine. You can put down two types of food for a cat. As a human, you won't be able to tell the difference. But if one has got high levels of natural taurine, the cat will be drawn to it immediately. So feeding a good quality, high meat, natural food is a good way to feed your cat. Taurine can also be damaged in the cooking process. So many brands, they cook their meat ingredients to a high level. And unfortunately, when you do that, you will destroy most of the taurine within the product. By feeding a natural diet, one such as our own brand, Applaws, that is carefully cooked at a safe temperature to maintain maximum taste and to also ensure that we have a rich source of natural taurine in the can. So feeding your cats can also prove to be a problem if you have more than one cat. Normally when you have more than one cat, you will have the dominant cats and the less dominant cats. You can have the situation where the less dominant cat is reluctant to eat their food or to drink water when the dominant cat is around. And that can build up real health issues over time. So to help prevent this, if you do have more than one cat, then try feeding them in different rooms and in different bowls. That way, the less dominant cat is encouraged to eat more of their food and also to drink more water. Neutered cats, again, have different feeding patterns. With most fit, healthy adult cats, they are able to regulate the amount of food that they eat. Again, totally different from a dog. If you put down a 10-kilo bag of dog food, the dog will try to eat the whole thing. Cats are not like that. Cats will only eat, if they're fit, healthy, unneutered, just the amount of food that they need. However, when a cat becomes neutered or sterilized, a cat loses this ability to self-regulate, and they can then put on quite a lot of additional weight. And because they then become less active, they tend to overgroom and you can get hairballs. So when you do have a neutered cat, it is very important to focus on their weight and to weigh them regularly to ensure that your cat is the right weight. And if your cat is putting on a few extra ounces, then you need to reduce the amount of food you feed accordingly. Home cooked food or raw food is becoming very, very popular, and it can be an excellent way to feed your cat, but it does have some potential risks which perhaps people should be made more aware of. Certainly in the United States, the FDA has done a lot of research into feeding raw diets, as unfortunately feeding raw diets is the #1 cause of salmonella problems in pet food in the United States. And unfortunately, they found that if you feed a raw diet to your cat, if there is a salmonella problem with the food, your cat or dog can become a salmonella carrier. It doesn't cause the cat or the dog much of a problem because their digestive system is designed to take care of high levels of contaminated food with Salmonella listeria. Dogs' stomach acid is about 10 times higher than ours. But what can happen is if they do have food which has Salmonella, they can then carry that Salmonella in or listeria in their saliva, and that can be passed on to humans. So feeding a raw diet can be very good, but you just have to be very, very careful and ensure that you're using really good quality ingredients, or you're buying it prepared by a good brand that has a history of ensuring that they produce safe products. The other problem with home prepared food is you can get the nutritional profile wrong. Certain vitamins are very important for cats. I won't go through them all because unfortunately we don't have the time. But I'll just take one of the most common ones, vitamin D. Humans, we get vitamin D through sunbathing by going out in the sun and just our body converting the sunshine we get into vitamin D into our bodies. Cats, they get vitamin D from the food that they eat. But when you're producing a home cooked diet, if you have too much ingredients such as liver or kidneys, which are high in vitamin D, if you have too high a level, this can actually cause a toxic problem with your cat over a long time. So feeding raw food can be great, but you need to be very careful, or better still, feeding a food that has been pre-cooked that's safe for both the cat and for the rest of the household could be a better alternative. Just a quick mention about our own product. At Applaws, we're using 100% natural ingredients. We don't use those ingredients which are used in many other common ingredients. Our product, we're using human grade chicken cuts. We're using human grade cuts of fish, and they're all made in a human grade factory. In fact, everybody in our company will regularly eat our food just to show how good it is. And when you open a can, you can actually see this is real ingredients, real natural products. So that's a quick run through over feeding your cat. I hope that's been interesting. If I haven't answered your questions, and there's an opportunity to ask some questions now, so I will. So if there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Mark, for your wonderful presentation. I think it was a learning experience for all of us. So before we go ahead, I would like to just there were a few important points that I thought would be important for our viewers. So I would like to just brief them in our local language. So uh, hello cat lovers. So basically मार्क ने वेट फूड का क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है इसके बारे में हमें हमारे साथ डिस्कशन किया. उनका उनका कहना और मानना है, जो कि सही है, कि कैट्स आर ऑब्लिगेटरी कार्निवोर. इसका मतलब वो 100% मांसाहारी होती है. उसे कोई 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 जैसा हमारे इन ह्यूमंस या डॉग्स ओमनिवेरस हो सकते हैं कि दे कैन ईट वेजिटेबल्स एज वेल एज फ्लेश, बट कैट्स आर ऑब्लिगेटरी कार्निवोर. सो आप उसके लिए जब डाइट चूज करते हैं तो यू शुड बी वेरी कीन. अगेन कैट्स के टेस्ट बर्ड्स के बारे में उन्होंने बताया कि अगर ह्यूमंस के बनिस्बत ह्यूमंस को अगर 9,000 टेस्ट बर्ड्स हो तो कैट्स को सिर्फ 500 टेस्ट बर्ड्स होते हैं. और कैट्स को कहा जाता है कि वो फसी कैट ईटर्स है या फसी वाटर ड्रिंकर्स है. सो बेसिकली ये जो टेस्ट बर्ड्स होते हैं ये काफी फोकस्ड होते हैं. तो कैट का वाटर कंटेंट उनका बढ़ाने के लिए फूड के अंदर मार्क सजेस्ट करते हैं कि आप उनको टैप वाटर पिला सकते हैं, जो कि रनिंग वाटर है. हमने हमारे प्रीवियस वेबिनार्स में काफी डिस्कस किया है कि हाउ आप कैट को मोटिवेट कैसा कर सकते हैं कैट का वाटर कंटेंट बढ़ाने के लिए उनके डाइट के अंदर. और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट, अगर आप वेट फूड लेते हो तो वेट फूड आप आपकी कैट को खिलाते हो तो ये वेट फूड के अंदर करीबन मीट के अंदर 80% मॉइस्चर होता है. सो उनके खाने में से भी उन्हें वाटर कंटेंट बॉडी में मिलता है. मार्क ने टोरिन का महत्व बताया कि टोरिन से क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है कैट की अपकीप के अंदर, स्पेशली किटन्स के लिए, कि वो अपना डेथ रेशियो काफी कम हो जाता है किटन्स के लिए. उसके बाद में बाइल फॉर्मेशन आइज के लिए. सो टोरिन इम्पोर्टेंट कंटेंट है फूड के अंदर का, और जो कि एक रॉ फूड और वेट फूड में पाया जाता है. उसके आगे जाके ये भी बताते हैं कि रॉ फूड इमीडिएट जैसा डायरेक्टली हम मार्केट में से लेके आके रॉ फूड खिलाते हैं हमारी कैट को, तो वो क्यों डेंजरस है. आपका नॉलेज होना इंपॉर्टेंट है. विटामिन डी का एक्सेस यूटिलाइजेशन आपकी टॉक्सिसिटी लेवल बढ़ा सकता है. ये टॉक्सिसिटी लेवल बढ़ने के बाद में आपका फूड पॉइजनिंग हो सकता है कैट्स को, और कुछ इरिवर्सिबल डैमेज हो सकता है, जैसे कि लिवर की वजह से होता है जिसमें हाई विटामिन डी होता है. सैमोनेला जो कि एक बैक्टीरियल इन्फेक्शन होता है, ये मीट कैरी करता है, ये आपकी कैट्स के बॉडी में जा सकता है. कैट्स इसको डाइजेस्ट कर सकती है और उन्हें इसका इफेक्ट नहीं होगा क्योंकि उनके बॉडी में हमारे से 10 टाइम ज्यादा एसिड होती है, बट वो उनका सलाइवा में कैरी करता है, और ये बैक्टीरियल इन्फेक्शन आपकी कैट के साथ में खेलते वक्त इंसानों को में ट्रांसमिट हो सकता है. सो ये एक बेसिक आइडिया थी मार्क की ये डिस्कशन को लेकर. सो थैंक यू मार्क. I think we'll go ahead with the discussion, and thank you again for your wonderful presentation.
Thank
So,
you, everyone.
Mark, there's there are a few things that I would like to discuss with you. You also talked about how one can feed dry food and wet food. So, very briefly, if you can discuss that, how a cat owner or a person who is having multiple cats in his house can balance between dry food and wet food. It might be the percentage or the feeding wise or something like that. So, what would you say about it?
Good question. The way that you feed wet food to a cat is quite different that you feed wet food and dry to a dog. When you're feeding a dog, many people like to mix a wet food in with their kibble. Don't do that for cats. Cats really enjoy the crunchy texture of dry kibble. So when you're feeding dry and wet, they should be fed separately. In the West, what most cat owners will do is they like to give their cat a really tasty tin of wet food in the morning, leave dry out during the day, and then a can of tasty cat food, perhaps a different recipe in the evening, and then dry food in the evening or late at night. Cats do like to eat late at night. Now, whenever you are feeding dry and wet, obviously you do need to reduce the amount of dry food that you feed. So if you're feeding 2 cans a day, then have a look at the feeding instructions on the back of the dry food that you're feeding. They all vary slightly, but you may need to reduce the amount of dry food by about a third. But again, have a look on the back of your information, and if it's not on the back of your pack, you should be able to Google it to find out the right amount for the dry food that you're feeding.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned about the crunchiness. I think this
Yeah,
dry food manufacturers will always have that element that, when the cats are biting the that particular kibble, so it will burst and it will give the crunchy feeling to the cat.
absolutely. What a lot of cheaper dry foods will do is that if you look at the moisture content, be around about 10%, and that's about the limit that you can get to before you start to have problems with the product potentially going moldy. So cheaper brands want to make their product near to the limit as possible. Now, the more expensive brands will go around about 6% or 8% moisture. So dry it right down because cats really do love that crunchy taste. And the other thing about wet and dry, by feeding them both together, you're bringing out the best of both foods. The dry food is important. It's important because it helps to keep the teeth strong and the gums healthy. Cats need something to crunch on.
They're
They
hunters.
need to absolutely. In the wild, they'll be crushing down on bones of small mice and other rodents. If you don't give your cat something hard to crunch down on, then over time they can develop a host of gum problems. So, you do need to feed. I would recommend that you feed dry food, but also feed a good wet food as well, because a good wet food will provide those natural nutrients such as natural taurine and the other moisture. And also, cats absolutely love the taste of a natural product. You are rewarding the cat, and cats notice that they're not stupid. If you put down a really good food for them, they become very excited. They purr more. They show you that, hey, I really like this food. So it's a great way to help the bond between cat owner and the cat.
Yeah. And so there was a question by Sheetal Bansal that, I only give wet food for cats. Is that good? So I think Mark explained this point very well by saying that, they should have the element of dry food. Otherwise, their teeth will not be strong. They will not have that bursting effect in their mouth, and in while they would go ahead and crunch a lot of diet. So at least a cat will nibble around for 20 diets a day. So that's something which is
Yep.
important. So it is always highly recommended that you have a balance between dry food and wet food. Don't go only for either of those. Right, Mark?
Absolutely. There are some cats that prefer wet food, and for those cats that prefer wet food, then you can ensure that you give your cat a higher percentage of a wet food diet. If your cat is if the majority of the food that you're feeding your cat is wet food, then you do need to make sure that it's a complete diet, not a complementary diet. There's two types of diets that you can buy. One's the complementary, which will have added vitamins and minerals to
Mhm.
it, or you will have 100% natural diets, which are ideal for feeding alongside with dry food. So just bear that in mind when you're looking about trying to choose the right food for your cat. And when you're choosing a good food, you want to try and choose a product which doesn't have um, a lot of artificial additives. There's
Mhm.
a lot of ingredients which you can use in pet food around the world, which are not allowed to be used in human food. Uh, we as a company, we only use ingredients which has been passed fit for human food use. So we will eat as humans our cat food because we know how good it is. Unfortunately, I do know that there are a lot of ingredients which are used in pet food which don't meet that criteria. So try to choose a brand which is using natural ingredients if you can.
Yeah. So thank you, Mark. I think, Mark, there are a lot of people who would also tend to mix dry food and wet food. maybe because their cats are not eating well, so that to have that kind of appetite and pull towards the food. So what would you suggest on that? Whether it's a good practice that one should mix the wet food and dry food.
Not together. If you add, you can feed them separately at different times of the day. But if you actually mix it in, you make the kibble go soft, and the kibble will stay dry, or will stay
Moist.
the kibble itself will keep its preservative properties once it's dry. As soon as the kibble becomes wet, it can start to deteriorate. So within a matter of hours, you can start to have a bacteria build up on it. If you leave dry food in a bowl by itself, as long as it's not got wet, then it will stay safe for a very, very long time. So feed wet in one bowl, feed dry in a different bowl. Don't mix them together.
Because cats have this habit that if you have a bowl, they will just come around, pick couple of kibbles, then go around, then again come down, they will pick few more food. So at least 8 to 10 times a day they will come and have small meals.
They will. They will.
Yeah, as their relatives do in wild. So I think you cannot keep this sort of mixture for a long time.
You can't. You can't. And having worked with a lot of cat owners over for a very long period of time, a lot of people say my cat only eats two meals a day. But if you actually leave a camera in the kitchen and see how many times your cat will go and have some kibble, for most cats they will eat around about 8 small meals a day, and some cats a lot more than that. They do like the convenience of being able to go backwards and forwards and just having a few kibbles every now and again.
And so there are a few questions. I think we can take a few questions from our viewers. So there is this question. I think this is a question of a lot of people in our country. He says that I have 20 cats and
Wow.
gravy food seems to be costly from market. So can I give them food from home?
Cat ownership is great, and as many people as possible should be encouraged to have a cat, because it gives great comfort to people. And obviously, we all try to feed the best food that we can. But if you have 20 cats, that's a lot of cats. That's a lot of cats to feed. So if you are feeding food from home, yes, you can, but you just have to be careful. So keep away from bones. Bones will very, very often get stuck in the stomach. If you're using any carcass meat, if we can try and grind it up very, very finely, so you can produce almost like a pate, that will help reduce any issues with the bones getting stuck in the digestive tract. So it's challenging feeding home produced product. But if you've got that number of cats, I completely understand why you'd want to do that. So the simple answer is yes, you can, but you have to be careful. So I wish you luck.
Yeah, and you should have that sort of knowledge to maintain the diet.
Yes.
The organs and the meat and what has to be chosen. So I think
it can be difficult because too much calcium, for example, can cause a problem. Not enough calcium can cause a problem. It can be a bit of a minefield.
Okay. And Mark, another question from my side that cats which are recovering. Okay, so maybe they have some medical issues, or maybe say pregnant females. So even pregnant females are recovering from the stage and they're regaining their health. So in this particular stage, would you recommend that the quantity of wet food to be fed should go high?
Probably yes. So our products are not veterinary diets, but we have an awful lot of vet and cat rescue centres which use our products, and particularly, I wonder if I've got one here. this is a dummy one, but particularly the pouches that we sell. These are very popular because the reason why cat clinics like them is you actually leave these in warm water, so to bring the temperature of the meat up to room level. And when you open it, this releases the flavor, so it stimulates a cat to eat. And of course, one of the things you want to do is when you do have a cat which is in post-operative or has been unwell and you're trying to make them healthy as quickly as possible, you want to get a good source of nutrition into them, and products which are high in taurine you want to try to introduce. So a good meat or the fish-based products, that we produce are particularly high in natural taurine, and that's an excellent way of encouraging a cat to help them get back on their feet again.
Yeah, because as you discussed that, the higher the taurine level, the more cats will be attracted towards the food, as they have that great sense and ability to understand which food has that level of taurine. And
They
in
can,
this, and
absolutely.
then, and in this case of scenario where they would not be that attracted towards the food, so feeding wet food can be a good option.
Yes, absolutely. We do know that there are some vets that will feed just wet food by itself for 2 to 3 months, to get the cat back to a healthy condition. So yeah, it's an excellent way of getting good quality nutrition into your cat.
Oh, wonderful. So we have a question from Ankush. He asks, "Hi Mark, thank you for the information. I wanted to know if Applause brought tins are a complete food or supplementary food."
That's a great question, and it's important to point out that these are supplementary pet foods. These have been designed specifically to be fed when you're feeding dry food as well. So they are very, very high. The fish diets are very, very high in taurine and other such natural ingredients, but they don't have the added vitamin pack. So they don't have any added vitamins that you will get with the dry food. So they've been developed specifically to be fed alongside a good, complete dry food. So if you're already feeding dry food already, this is a great way to help boost the nutrition of your cat and help to keep them healthy for longer. So it's a great addition to your if you're feeding dry food already.
Yeah. To addition to this, I found another question, that if we are feeding, for example, wet food, so do we need to give them additional supplement? So what this gentleman asks is, you're already feeding a dry food and wet food, so do you need to have supplements? So mostly in India, we have this omega 3, omega 6 supplements. So what is your take on this?
If you're feeding a good quality dry food, such as our own Applause dry food or another good quality brand, there's no need to add any additional supplements. Our products contain a rich source of Norwegian salmon oil, which are already high in omega 3, and we also have additional omega 6 within the products as well. So we have high levels of omega 3 within our dry foods, which is
Mhm.
designed to be fed with our wet food. If you're feeding a brand of dry food that isn't supplemented with natural ingredients such as fish oil, which has natural levels of omega 3, then yes, it probably would be a good idea to feed additional supplements.
Yeah. So there is one more question which says that how many times and how much gravy, like gravy is like the wet food, can be
Yeah,
given to kittens and cats. So here the question is about the stages also.
right.
So how would you recommend, because kittens are on the growing stage, cats have already grown. So she talks about the kittens as well as adults. So what would you suggest? And even if you can enlighten us that, which time of the day you can feed wet food, which will be like
Uh,
optimum for cats.
Okay. The important thing when you have young kittens is you want to ensure that they stay as healthy as possible. Um, and they will have developed in their stomach the digestive flora needed to break down food from its mother while it was growing inside its mother. So initially at the weaning stage, you should be feeding the same food that the mother was fed when she was pregnant. This will help reduce any potential problems with diarrhea as the kitten's getting older. Once you've weaned the cat, you can start introducing a good quality wet food. And cats, kittens particularly, you should feed to appetite. Do not hold back on the food. Give them as much food as they need. They're not like puppies. They will be able to utilize all the food that they use. So you can feed them. It's best to feed a kitten at least 6 times during the day if you can, or try to feed at least 6 times, so that they want lots of small meals during the day, and if possible leave some dry food out at night. Yeah, so try and feed your kitten as much wet food as they want during the day is the advice I would give.
Oh, thank you. And I think a very wonderful point you made over here. So I would just like to translate this point in Hindi. So माँ कह रहे हैं कि जब आप वीन ऑफ करते हैं किटन को वीन ऑफ मतलब उनका माँ का दूध जब वो पीना कम कर देते हैं एंड देन दे शिफ्ट टू ड्राई फूड और वेट फूड, तो उस वक्त आप वही खाना खिलाइए जो आपने आपकी प्रेग्नेंट फीमेल को जब प्रेगनेंसी में खिलाया। काफी बार लोग सजेस्ट करते हैं और ये फॉलो भी करते हैं कि प्रेग्नेंट कैट्स को ऑलरेडी वो किटन फूड खिलाते हैं। सो कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं होनी है बिकॉज आप ऑलरेडी आपके कैट्स को किटन फूड खिला रहे हो, और जब आप किटन वीन ऑफ स्टेज में आ रहा है तो आपको तभी भी उसे किटन फूड ही खिलाना है। बट अगर आप सेम ब्रांड सेम प्रोडक्ट अगर आप यूज करते हो उस वक्त, तो कैट्स को किटन्स को डायरिया का इशू और ग्रोथ में प्रॉब्लम कम होगी। सो आई थिंक आई जस्ट एक्सप्लेन्ड अबाउट द पॉइंट दैट यू मेड अबाउट यूजिंग द सेम फूड फॉर द किटन्स एज वेल एज मदर्स that you use during pregnancy and for kittens during weaning off. So I think it was a fantastic point, and thank you, Mark. I think this was also a learning for me.
Good.
Sometimes we would try and change and experiment on the brand. So that is something, or you may do it the other way. The brand that works for you as a kitten in your kittens, you can feed those in your to your cats during pregnancy.
Yes.
I think there is again I think we have already discussed this. This is a question which says that how much non-veg and veg materials we should use in pellets for the young cat and for adult cats. There is no question of veg because they are obligatory carnivore, but I don't know why he's asking about pellets. I think he means about the diet. Because
I think many people, when they're referring to dry food, they refer to it as pellets. Some people call it kibbles, some people. So you have to be a little bit careful when you're looking at a bag of dry food, because sometimes you will see the number one ingredient is meat. So you're saying, oh, great, the majority of the food is meat. But all that's happened is they've broken down the different other cereal ingredients. So you'll have meat followed by wheat, followed by maize, followed by sorghum, followed by oats, followed by. But if you add up all those cereals, then in most food, the cereals or grains will be around about 70% product. So you need to look at good brands of dry food, and there are fortunately quite a few good brands on the market today. There is obviously our own brand, Applaws, which is 70% to 80% meat, but and absolutely free from carbohydrates. So I just want to point out a point about carbohydrates. We all know that carbohydrates are important for us, and we as humans, we need carbohydrates in our diet every day, because the carbohydrates gives us the energy that we need to be able to function properly. Dogs also can benefit from carbohydrates. Cats create carbohydrates in a totally different way to humans. We get it from our food, cats can create all the carbohydrates they need from a meat-based diet, as long as there is a sufficient level of fat. So they can create all the carbohydrates they need. Now, there are some different opinions on best way you can feed your dog and cat, and what you should do, what you shouldn't do. But this is a hard fact. Cats do not require any carbohydrates from their food. As long as it's high in meat and fat, they can create all the carbohydrates that they need in their own metabolism. So this is why they're true carnivores. So try not to think of them as a dog. Try not to think of them as a small human. They do need a meat-based diet. There's been a lot of work that's been done by some of the major global companies on feeding high levels of carbohydrates. There was a very good article that was done by the University of, I believe it's the University of Sydney, and I can certainly make this paper available because it's freely published. And they did a lot of work to show that if a cat has too higher levels of carbohydrates in their diet, it can stress the liver, stress the kidneys, and cause all sorts of problems. So you do need to be careful when you're feeding a high grain diet. High grain diets are obviously a lot cheaper, so I can understand there is a temptation to feed a cheaper diet. But if you are able to afford it, feeding a better quality food can be beneficial for your cat.
Yeah, thank you. So I think what you said is pretty understood when we talk about obligatory carnivore nature of a cat, that they can they don't require extra carbs from diet, and they can make their own carbohydrates. But a lot of people still follow by they would still feed their cats with chapatis that we made out of wheat or rice, rice and chicken. So again, these are rich sources of carbohydrates which certainly cats don't require.
No,
So
not in high levels. If you look at a cat in the wild, what they will eat, for example, a mouse, and in the mouse's stomach there will be some pre-digested, let's say, rice, but it's already been pre-cooked. It's in the stomach, so it's only when you start getting above around about 15% carbohydrates you're going to start to have some problems. In a natural diet, a cat will probably have no more than 5% of its diet coming from carbohydrates. When you start getting above 15, you're going to start having potential problems. So dogs you can feed a lot more, but for cats, no, if you want to keep them healthy, you need to keep the carbohydrate level really low.
Yeah. So there is again a question says that if feeding a raw diet, can there be a bad breath issue of a cat? In India, we have chicken and mutton. So mutton is goat meat,
Yep.
which would be a better bet, and which cuts or organs?
Ideally, if you're just feeding a raw diet, then you need to feed a full cross section of the ingredients. You need to be feeding both the meat and the organs as well. The organs are high in things like vitamin D. Also, they can contain good levels of taurine. Normally, the problem with the bad breath is not to do with the food that they're eating. A lot of bad breath can come about by having gums which have become very soft, and unfortunately you start to develop health problems such as gingivitis and other issues, and it's when the cat hasn't been biting down on something hard. Unfortunately, if it gets to the stage when you've got bad breath, it might be an idea to actually see a vet and see if there are underlying health conditions such as gingivitis, which is treatable, and it's better to treat it earlier rather than later. But to answer the question, which would be a better bet of which cuts organs, you want to be feeding both the muscle meat plus the organs as well, plus the carcass. You need the calcium from the carcass. Very important, particularly for kittens. If you don't ensure you have sufficient carcass in there, then when the kitten is growing, if there's not enough calcium in its diet, then the cat's metabolism will automatically suck out parts of the calcium from the kitten's bones, and you can cause severe joint problems. So yeah, very important for kittens.
Okay. Okay. And you have been referring, Mark, about complementary diet. So, what would you say it's a major thing that differs a complete diet and a complementary diet? So, and do you think that standalone there could be a complete diet?
Do you mean from a commercial
Commercial,
basis?
commercially, yeah, commercial
We
purpose.
have looked at producing 100% natural diet, which is a complete food. And the problem is some of the nutrients are not shelf stable. Our products, our complementary products we produce, are 100% natural ingredients, no artificial additives, no artificial chemicals or nutrients which have been added.
Hmm.
To get a dry food which is 100% natural, no one has achieved such a product, because to keep it shelf stable, you do need to add some added minerals and vitamins. Our wet products are 100% natural. If we wanted to make it a complete diet, we would have to add some vitamins and minerals to the product. This would have an effect on the taste of the product. It wouldn't be as palatable for the cats. It wouldn't be so enjoyable. Our cats really enjoy our diets. This is why they're expensive, but this is why people keep coming back and buying our foods, because they can see how much their cats enjoy the food. We sell all over the world, and one of our fastest growing markets is in China, um, um, where again they are big cat lovers, but a lot of people are quite concerned about cost. But when they see how much their cat enjoys our food, they believe it's a cost worth spending. So yes, we've decided to keep our products complementary, because when they're fed in the way that they're intended, i.e. alongside a good complete food, and we do a complete wet food as well. We do wet foods in I have one here. These are our pate products, and these contain both meat, but also some offals as well, heart and liver, to give the natural vitamins and minerals in there. The complementary products are just 100% pure chicken breast meat, or 100% pure beef, or 100% pure fish fillets, with no added nutrients to it. So they're wonderful diets. In fact, I've got one here. I'm going to try and open a tin. Not sure I can do that. So I'm not. So this is our chicken product. Not sure if you can see that. Bring it nearer to the camera.
Yeah, we can see that.
Delicious. I'm hungry. I haven't had my lunch, by the way. The only thing that you will find about our products, if you were to taste them, this is our chicken product. If you were to taste them, it tastes a little bit bland because there's no added salt.
Yeah.
Salt is bad for humans. It's even worse for cats. So we try to ensure that our products are as salt-free as possible. Even with our fish products, fish is actually naturally not salty, but when you leave fish in salty water, it soaks it up like a sponge, and it gives the fish a flavor that we humans really like. but for cats it's not good. So when we catch our fish, we don't store them in salty water. We cook them as quickly as possible, so they maintain all the as much of the natural nutrients as possible. And
Yeah. So, Mark, a few, a lot of cat owners also complain that when you feed wet food as a complement to the dry food, obviously the palatability, for n number of reasons that you told us, that palatability of wet food is pretty high, and cats enjoy eating the wet food a lot. So they complain that at the end of the day they end up spoiling the cat, and the cat will not go for dry food, and they would still have that urge to have wet food again and again and again, and a few of the cats may end up not looking at the dry, which is the kibble based food, at all. So how would you like to guide the cat owners on this particular situation?
Yes, you're right. I have had cats myself, which has really enjoyed wet food and not been keen on dry food at all. On the other, I've also had it the other way around. I've had cats that have eaten dry food and not been that keen on wet food, but majority of them cats absolutely love wet food, and you can get a problem with them eating dry food. It really does depend on trying to find a dry food that your cat will like. So I would try having a look at a number of brands, um, but those brands which are high in meat. Um, the meat has the natural taurine, it's the natural attraction that the cat has. Most of the supermarket brands will be at least 70% cereals within that product. There are brands out there which have less than 4% meat. Uh, they will say, but if you actually look at the meat, there it's coming from not the muscle meat, it's coming from the offal or waste material.
Mhm.
And when you're looking at pet food, a lot of pet food out there is made from the leftover material from kitchens or abattoirs. And unfortunately, it's not always kept in the best condition by the time it reaches the pet food factory. So to make it safe, they have to cook it at a very, very high temperature. So they kill off any nasty bacteria within the product. If you're choosing a product like our product and other good brands on dry food, you keep the meat ingredients in the same way as you would do for the human food chain. So the ingredients come in nice and fresh, and you cook it, and it maintains that good, nice, fresh flavor. Um, a lot of ingredients which goes into some dry foods are cooked at above 200 degrees Celsius. You're killing everything dead, but you're still maintaining the protein. But because you're cooking it for such a long time, it's not particularly palatable. It's got this slight bitter taste to it, which cats particularly don't find appealing. You don't get that so much you don't get that at all on better quality, higher meat products. So it may be just you just need to try a few brands to find the dry food that your cat does like.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's the mistake of the owner also for not choosing appropriate dry food in which should be the primary food with the complementary wet food.
Yeah, I mean, dry food is very convenient and it's great to have because you can leave it down. It doesn't attract flies or anything. So it is great to have. But if you can try and choose quality uh, dry food, then that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. So thank you, Mark, again for all the information that you have given, and we can talk all day on this particular topic, on anything which is related to cats. But I think we'll have to stop here. Any takeaway message, Mark, would you like to give to our cat owners?
Just one. I mean, making great pet food actually isn't that difficult. All you have to do is start off with the best, freshest raw ingredients and cook it gently to ensure you bring out the maximum taste. So that's how we make our pet food. So I would encourage everyone, if they can, to try and choose a good natural pet food for the cat, and they will find a cat will really enjoy it and stay healthy and hopefully be your best friend.
Yeah, that
So
could
on
be.
that.
That could be an amazing thing to bond with your cat.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone who's been watching today. I hope you enjoy your evening, and I'll leave you to get back to your cats.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you all the viewers who joined from all the different platforms that we had today. And please share with all your friends about all the technicalities and some of the excellent points and learnings that we got from Mark today. So thank you, Mark, once again. Thank you, Team Applause. Thank you, Team Orange Pet Nutrition and Team DogSpot for making this webinar successful. So I'll take your leave, Mark, and thank you all the cat lovers who joined.